Welcome back to your 49ers Live, looking here from training camp at the SAP Performance Facility, and we got a very special guest with us. We have 49ers Vice President of Player Personnel, Adam Peters, joining us. And what's so crazy is not only are we 3 weeks away from the start of the season, but we're literally in the thick of everything now. It's kind of crazy, but the last time we had you as a guest, it was last year at Denver, and we were having joint practices and we were talking a little bit, but now, taking a step back, looking at the year we had, your job is never done, but can you kind of sit back and be like, okay, we're taking the right steps, we're on the right path?
Yeah, no, it's very different than last year for sure. 2020's been kind of for the birds, but we're we're working on fixing that, and we've got a great plan, I think, with everything that our facilities have done, everything logistics have done, the whole league, all the teams. So I feel really safe, feel really happy that this is going on, and I think we got a really good plan to kick off a really good season.
I want to talk about the scouting department and how you guys have had to tackle this offseason. It's completely different, like you brought up. You guys no longer can scout guys the way you used to, but how has this offseason been for you guys?
Yeah, the offseason's certainly been very different. It's been covered. We did all the drafts meetings through Zoom. Still, we're able, again, our video department did an excellent job making that so possible, and it really went off without a hitch. And it took a lot of people working together, a lot of teamwork, and I think we did really well considering all the circumstances.
So right now, as you guys can see, we got the players stretching right behind us, and I'll go ahead and let the camera know to go ahead and get off of us and go ahead and take a look at what's going on right behind us. You can see, I think you have the offensive line directly behind us right there. I see you guys zooming in a little bit. There we go. So as we talk about having to make changes, one of the changes I took note of was during our Meet the Scouts. And you kind of gave an introduction to, you know, your job and scouting. And one thing you had your daughter in the shot. Like, we're all working completely differently. We're having to work from home. You guys are having to do things from home. But what you talked about in Meet the Scouts, scouting a guy like George Kittle. This was back when you were in Denver. What do you remember from his time at Iowa? And you said he was you had a third round grade on him.
Yeah.
But what did you see out of him back in Iowa? And did you have any idea he'd blossom into the player he is today?
Yeah. Sorry, it's a little hard to hear with Meek Mill blasting in the background, but I'll try to answer all your questions as good as possible. But with George, yeah, George was a really interesting guy because he was so athletic. He was so really raw as a pass catcher, but you could see how strong he was, how competitive he was as a blocker. He had a unique way of bending and blocking on angles where, you know, not a lot of players you see in college do that. So we really took an eye to him, and we were very, very fortunate, as I said in that video, that we got him in the 5th round. And, you know, he's probably a top 10 pick now. But sometimes you got to be lucky in that way, and we certainly took a calculated risk, and it's paid off quite well.
I love when you see different media sites, they do this whole, like, if we redrafted the 2017 draft class, where would you place people in? I would for sure think George would be a top 10 pick.
Yeah, absolutely. George would be a top 10 pick all day.
So I want to talk about draft day, because this draft was much different than years prior, but how smooth was it for you and your team? And especially, you talked about it on Meet the Scouts. It's on 49ers.com if you haven't given it a look already. And we're talking to Adam, and he's talking about being able to move back a spot and grab the guy that you want in Javon Kinlaw, and then you were able to jump ahead and grab Brandon Ayuk. But how smooth was that process? Detail me a little bit about the draft and making these picks amid having a completely virtual draft.
Yeah, again, it took a lot of teamwork. It took a lot of cooperation and understanding, because we're all usually in one big room and we could communicate really fast. And here we are in 5 different houses pretty much, trying to figure out which trade's the best, which trade we can still move back and get our guy. And it took a lot of communication between Martin, Mayhew, John, and Kyle, and Parag to get that done. And we were able to find the best deal and move back 1 pick and still get the guy we wanted and pick up a 4th rounder in the process.
49ers had a small draft class, just 5 guys, but fortunately, there weren't too many holes that we needed to fill. But I want to know what drew you to some of the guys that we drafted. Now I'm going to talk about, we talked about the first rounders, but how about the Colton McKivitts, the Charlie Warners, the Jawan Jennings? What did you guys see that you're like, this is a guy that could be an asset to this team?
Yeah, those are great questions, and we didn't have a lot of picks, so we had to be right on them. And so you get into the 5th round, and really Colton McKivitts was a guy we had on our eye on really a lot earlier. We addressed the tackle situation with Trent Williams, obviously. That's turned out really well so far. But with Colton, we saw a guy who was really, he's a tough guy. He's Eastern Ohio, like Rust Belt, like steel mill type, just strong, really, really outstanding character. We called him a gold helmet, which is something that's really hard to get in our scouting department. You have to be top notch in everything from athleticism to intelligence to football character. And he fit all those things. And when he was looking at us in the face in the 5th round, it was a no-brainer. And so far, really, the returns have been good with him as well.
He's actually a really cool guy, too. I thoroughly enjoy his personality. He fits right in and reminds me a lot of a young, and I'm not just saying this, but he reminds me of a young Mike McGlinchey when I talk about his personality and the way that Mike, on his rookie season, kind of gravitated towards Joe, and they kind of played off of each other. But in my first meeting with him, my first couple, I get that feeling. I feel like he fits right in.
Yeah, he's certainly not shy. He's very confident, and he really did fit in there seamlessly. He acts more like a veteran than a rookie right now, and all rookies are going to have their ups and downs. But so far, in terms of the person, I think we hit on that, and certainly early returns as a player, he's looked pretty good. And then you get to Charlie Warner. Charlie Warner, you know, a blocking tight end, those are things of the past. We got one, everybody said George Kittle was a blocking tight end. He's turned out pretty well, but Charlie Warner's yeah, he's all right. Charlie Warner was really a blocking tight end, and the first time I really got to see him in person was at the NFLPA All-Star Game. Those All-Star Games are so valuable. You get to really get up close and see these players that you only see on film otherwise, unless you're an area scout when you get to go and see them at their schools and games. So we got to really get up close on Charlie Warner, and there's 3 or 4 tight ends at that game, and they were doing this blocking drill, and the first couple of guys came up, and they were kind of okay, and then Charlie Warner came up, and you could feel him, how physical, how strong, like how dense he was. He was different than the other guys, so that left a lasting impression with us, and certainly helped us make that decision in April. And then the last guy, he's a really interesting guy, Jawan Jennings. I joke around, I'm smiling because we had this video that we passed around, like all the coaches. We even sent it to Jed. It's called The Dog. You guys should check it out on YouTube, but it's Jawan Jennings, nicknamed The Dog, and it might have been the best highlight video I've ever seen on YouTube, and he's a 7th rounder, and he's definitely more talented than a 7th rounder. But the thing about Jawan that you see, not only is he really talented, but he loves football. He loves playing, and that comes out on the film, and that comes out when you talk football with him, and so we're really excited that we got him too.
One thing that stands out to me when I look at the guys that came in, I got to talk to everybody on draft day, and more recently we have Meet the Rookies, kind of like our Meet the Scout series, but we have Meet the Rookies, which is coming out on 49ers.com this week. But I got to get to know the guys a little bit, and I know you guys preach culture so much, but I truly believe that when I talk to these guys, I get to know them. They're football guys, they love the game, but they bring the right attitude. Do you kind of pick up on that too?
Yeah, I think it all goes back to when we first started here, and Kyle and John got together and they created the vision statement that's been around, and people can see it on the internet. But really, it's just exactly what we want in a 49er, both in talent and in spirit. So we try to follow that as closely as possible. Not every single player is going to fit all of those boxes. Usually those guys are the number 1 or 2 overall pick, like a Nick Bosa. But certainly in talent, but in spirit, you still want the guys that are competitive. They're great teammates. They're accountable. They're tough. They're mentally tough. They're intelligent, and guys that you can count on that'll protect the team. So you fit all those boxes, and then you fit as many boxes as you can in terms of the talent. And our scouts have done a great job working with the coaches. College scouting department's been fantastic. Ethan Waz, like as detail oriented as you can get. So he gets everybody all set up, make sure we're all on the same page, and really it's just the teamwork of that, and really abiding by that 49er vision.
I love that saying, protect the team. I love when you guys say that, and I feel like that it means a lot, and it's true when you think about this roster and, you know, wanting this team to succeed. That also can take place, I mean, it can take shape when you're talking about COVID as well. You know, everybody having a responsibility, especially if you want to have this NFL season. But I want to talk about the cancellation of Pac-12 and Big Ten football. How is that going to affect scouting? Because I know you're over both pro and college scouting, but how is that going to affect your college scouting this year?
It's gonna impact it quite a bit. You know, it hurts me a little bit with being a Pac-12 guy, being a UCLA guy, that we're not going to see the Bruins play. I was excited for this season, but it's a challenge for our college scouts. But they've been on top of it since, you know, really the pandemic started. So we've had contingency plans, and just like anything in this whole pandemic, you got to be adaptable. So the rules change every week, whether it's wearing masks, anything on and off the field. So our guys are on top of it. They're doing Zoom calls with all the coaches. You know, instead of visiting the schools, they're doing Zoom calls. The Zoom calls are not the most exciting things in the world, as anybody who's been on a Zoom call, but they're like 3 hours, but you get a lot of good information. And as soon as we get a chance to go see these guys, our guys are ready to go, and they're on top of it. And then in terms of the tape, you really have to look at the tape from 2019. And that's really a challenge, is that we have to scout a little bit of a different way, just because we're not scouting almost a finished product. We're projecting guys, because some of these guys, there's a guy, Greg Rousseau, who just opted out. He only has one season of football. He's a freshman in that season. So he's not a finished product. So you have to kind of visualize what he's going to be in a couple of years.
Now, same thing, I want to talk about maybe the undrafted free agents. These are guys that they rely on preseason. You know, NFL's not having a preseason this year. But how are you able to evaluate this talent when you don't have those live game reps? Are you more so putting a heavier emphasis on their practice? Are you going back to tape? How does that work?
Yeah, it's twofold, because you're evaluating your undrafted free agents, which I can't talk about because we're keeping all that secret. But they all suck. Nobody wants them. No, they're all doing a great job. But in terms of that, you know, obviously there's certain positions that are harder to evaluate. You know, running backs are harder to evaluate than in the game and in practice and in games, because they don't get tackled. Quarterbacks, we don't have that issue because we don't have any rookie quarterbacks, but that would be, you know, seeing those guys face live bullets, that's really tough. So evaluating our own guys is a little bit of a challenge, but the bigger challenge is evaluating the other teams.
That's a good point. You think about some of the teams that just got those rookie quarterbacks that are supposed to step in on week one, but with no live steps. You see some teams are doing kind of scrimmages in their own stadium against one another, but that's a difficult position to evaluate that, you know, I didn't really think of when you're looking at talent on this field. But all right, let's talk about veterans. Without preseason, there are going to be some veteran players who might not make 53, 55-man rosters. How do you guys evaluate those guys? Because usually that's a time where I believe you guys are looking through the league, seeing some guys that might fit what we're doing here. But how do you look at those kind of guys without having a preseason, watching them come back without, I guess, a off season of tape?
Yeah, that's another challenge we're having to face, and it's the same as with the rookies, where Rand Carthon, our director of pro personnel, was on that really early. He had our pro scouts start watching college tape of all the undrafted and late round picks. So because in anticipation that there wasn't going to be any preseason, and he was right, so they were ahead on that. And then with the veterans, you really have to, again, watch last year's tape. We have a lot of good veterans that are in camp here, which is good. They're learning the system. So if they don't make our team, at least they know what we're doing. We can bring them in mid-season. And then we also have the opportunity to bring in 6 veterans on the practice squad, which is, I think, a great opportunity for both us and them to still play some football.
So, Adam, you've been a part of 3 championship rosters. And I'm talking about New England, Denver, and then the 49ers NFC championship roster from last year. But now as you look back at, you know, rosters that you may have been a part of, what sets what the 49ers have right now apart from maybe some of your previous rosters you've worked on?
Yeah, that's a great question. I asked myself that, and what makes a great roster. And really, I mean, first off, we're not quite a championship roster. We're an NFC championship roster, and that's what we're going for this year. But I do see a lot of the similarities in this roster than in New England and Denver, and they're all very different. They're all built different ways. But, you know, our roster I love. for the same things I talked about earlier about John and Kyle's vision of what we want in a player, and how many players on this team really embody that. Just the teamwork, the selflessness, protect the team, and then just being great players and great individuals who love football. And that's what we've really striven to get, and we've done a pretty good job in getting a lot of those guys, and then it kind of everybody follows suit. You know, the younger guys see that, and when you have the best guys on your team like Nick Bosa working that hard, the other guys are going to work that hard too.
So the 49ers roster has been completely overhauled since 2017 when you guys inherited it, but what's been the biggest point of emphasis when you guys are procuring talent and talented players?
Yeah, I feel like I sound like a broken record here, but it really goes back to the vision that we have for each player. So does this guy fit this vision? How does he? How doesn't he? Can we get him better at these certain things? Can we get, or is he kind of what he is? And just trying to get the good people who love football in here that are really good. I mean, the guys like Fred Warner, who's, he's going to be a team captain, a third-round pick, but he fit all those things in terms of the spirit, and then he fit a few things that probably fit our team a little bit better than it did other teams. That's why he was a third-round pick, but we saw some traits in him that we thought could really translate to our defense, and so far they had, and it's really a credit to our coaches, and then certainly Fred for how hard he's worked. He's been incredible.
So as we're slowly winding down to the end of where we can film, but I got a couple more for you. And we were talking earlier, and you're saying that usually you're not out here this early. You have you're so lucky. He has a great office that you can see the practice field. You can see the guys out here stretching. And once the guys get to business, he can come out to the field and watch practice. But when you come out to practice, is there any one position group or a drill, or is there something that grabs your attention? And I say this, and I'm not trying to lead you into the Nick Bosa, Trent Williams one-on-one battles, because that was John's answer.
Yeah.
But is there anything that just, I don't know, maybe it's your role, maybe just something that catches your eye, but what do you gravitate towards on the field?
Yeah, that is, what do you say, must-see pay-per-view football. It really is. I think I gravitate to that every time, too, and I probably should be watching other stuff because I think those guys are going to be all right. But
it's hard to not watch.
Yeah. But there is, I mean, we've worked really hard on man coverage, so there's a lot of good man coverage reps and one-on-one, both in the wide receivers and DBs, linebackers, tight ends, running backs. So those are always really fun to watch the guys compete. And then the competition periods that we do, one offense versus one defense, those are really exciting. And just seeing really good players go against each other, iron sharpening iron, and every snap you see some really good things from both the offense and defensive side that we can build on.
Winding down the final moments of 49ers camp. Don't forget, actually, we're talking about Meet the Scouts, we're talking about Meet the Rookies, but 49ers Brick by Brick premieres this evening. Hard work by the 49ers Studios, 49ers production team, putting this piece together. A behind-the-scenes look at training camp. I know Adam and I are trying to give you guys as much of a look of what's going on during the periods that we're allowed to be here, but another look behind the curtain of 49ers camp. It premieres this evening at 5 p.m. You can watch that on 49ers.com, YouTube, Facebook, airing just about everywhere, 5 p.m. Make sure you guys are tuned in with that. But with that, Adam, you got anything else for us?
Yeah, I think one thing that's been really close to my heart, and really a lot of people out here, like I said, 2020 has been a tough year, and now we have all these fires, and I know we have people working here. Jeff Gilbert he's in our equipment room. We got Mike Chazanoff in PR, and they've gotten evacuated, and I have aunts, uncles, cousins that have all gotten evacuated out of their houses. Yeah. So just want to tell them we're thinking about them, and we're praying for them, and thanks to all Cal Fire and all the local fire departments. It's been really cool to see. I mean, I saw a plane flying in from Canada this morning, and just everywhere, all throughout California, Southern California, different states. So thank you to them, those brave men and women that are doing that, and hopefully things will get better, and the end of 2020 is going to be a lot better than the beginning.
I truly hope that. We're hoping 2020 makes its turn, especially as we have football on the horizon. And again, our thoughts and prayers are with everybody that's affected with these Northern California wildfires. With that, Adam, an absolute pleasure. Thank you for the time, and hopefully we get you back soon. We don't have to wait a whole nother training camp to have you.
Yeah, you just tell Bob Lang. He's my boss.
All right, Bob. We'll make sure we let him know. You guys, please be safe. Have fun out there. Don't forget to watch Brick by Brick tonight, 49ers.com, YouTube, and Facebook. And we will see you guys tomorrow for the 49ers Rewind. We'll be in studio recapping everything that's happened in the second block of practices. And I actually have an exclusive interview with George Kittle. We just talked about him. So make sure you guys tune in. That will be tomorrow at 5 p.m. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend.